Good morning, everybody. Welcome to show number 222. It's an angel number, if you guys believe in that sort of thing. 222, nice even number. Oh, I'm tangled up here, guys. Give me a sec. I think I'm standing. We're sitting on my headphone cable here. All right. How's everybody doing today? Everybody doing okay? I hope you guys can hear me all right. If you can, let me know. If there's any issues, let me know. I'm raring to go. Been looking forward to Sunday. I had a busy week. Lots of stuff to talk about today. I hope you guys have a lot of interesting topics that you guys want to talk about as well. As per usual, don't be afraid to jump right in. Today we're going to have a hard stop at about the 1 hour mark. So I'm going to be online, I guess, from 10:30 to 11:30, and then we got a hard stop there. So let's try and jam in as many questions as we can, get the show started, because time is money. And I don't have time and I don't have money. So what are we going to do about that? All right, let's say good morning to everybody that's already in the house. Today we have 19 people that are already raring to go. This morning I had an issue with YouTube, by the way. I don't know why, but it seems like I posted some questions or some little comments in the chat reminding everybody to just take a moment to answer the poll question, and it seems like it may have gotten duplicated. I'm not sure, but anyways, there is a poll question out. Please take a moment to answer the weekly poll. And there's also another poll I just put out this morning, and that poll is just a quick question to see which effects pedals you guys would like me to review next, because as I mentioned last week, there would be a poll on that. I figured everybody, should get a chance to vote. I don't want to be making videos that nobody wants to see. So if there's something interesting that you want to see me review, put it in there. All right. Good. Let's say hi to the boys or girls or whoever's here this morning. Let's see. So Gene is here. Good morning, Gene. My Logify is here. He says first. So he's been waiting for the show to start. Wayne McConnell is here as well. He says hi all. Time to get high. Yeah, let's do it. Ken is here. He says good morning, fellow addicts. Are we really addicts? I don't know. Maybe. Perhaps. I'm still in denial. Isn't that the first step of admitting that you have a problem, is just the admission that there is a problem? I'm still in denial. Eddie Jr. is here. So Gene is here as well. He says, I had a busy week. Repairs and set up a BC Rich Mockingbird. Put a new neck on a Telecaster art project and bought a black Gretsch Projet. We'll post pics for next week. Very cool, dude. Hey, how come you're so busy all of a sudden? What's going on? You getting ready for something big? Or is it just happens that you had these guitars lined up for a while? Because sometimes I do that. I know that there's a few repairs that need to be done on some of my guitars, and I don't do them as needed. I kind of let them pile up and then do a whole bunch at the same time. But that's very cool, man. A BC Rich Mockingbird, eh? Nice. I don't own any. I never owned a Mockingbird. Never owned a BC Rich guitar, actually, now that I think about it. But those are cool. And the Gretsch, well, everybody needs a Gretsch in their life, I think, right? Congratulations, Gene. Looks like you're going to have a nice, busy, and fun week ahead of you. That sounds good. Cushman is here too. He says, I put Gibson 57 Classics in an Epi Les Paul upgraded electronics. It's for a friend's kid. Wow, man. The kid's got good taste if he's putting in 57 Classics in it. I think he's going to love it. 57 Classics are my favorites. And honestly, I think if you upgrade pickups in a Les Paul, an Epiphone Les Paul, you have a really awesome guitar. I don't think you can really knock the Epiphones that much. I mean, you know, the only thing you can say is that slowly the price is creeping up. But in terms of quality, man, I think that's a great starter guitar. It could even, I don't know why I call them starter guitars. You can play an Epiphone even as a pro. It doesn't really matter. So that's great. I think he's gonna love it. Gene says he's already on his third bong, so we have some catching up to do, guys. Eddie says no new gear for him. Just got back from vacation where I spent a shit ton of money. So Eddie, do you calculate your expenses or what goes out in terms of spending money as how much you could have bought in gear? I tend to do that. That's how I know I have a problem. I'm like, oh man, that dinner, could have been a Wampler pedal, or, that whatever, that automobile repair could have been a really nice amp. That's how I calculate things in my twisted brain. So I don't know if I'm the only one. Gene says YouTube must be filtering your bad words like Esteban and auto-tuners. Yeah, YouTube's doing weird things lately. I'm getting a little fed up of YouTube, to be honest. Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. It's the only platform that we can work with until something better comes along. But my Logify says I can't say anything new because my message getting blocked by YouTube filter. Yeah, there's I don't know what's going on with that. So yes, Gene, there's 2 poll questions today. I'm going to remind everybody for the latecomers. There's 2 poll questions today, which means that you can actually vote on the weekly poll and the poll question that I put up this morning that basically outlines which pedals you'd like me to review next. So vote on both while you're there. Would help me out. The whole point of these pedal reviews is to help people out, right? And I know that there's some pedals that are more popular than others. It's obvious to me whenever I do a gear review, the popular stuff gets the most views. It's not rocket science. So if you do a review of a Gibson guitar, or do a review of a well-known pedal brand, you're gonna get more views on it. The less known stuff, the obscure stuff, is just like people are not searching for that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean some people out there don't want to see that kind of stuff. So I'm here to make everybody happy. All right, so Ben is here, MFN is here, Paul is here as well. He says his internet provider keeps crashing. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills, Paul. Stop spending on gear and pay your bills. I got to do something here, guys. Now that you reminded me, sorry, just give me a second. I just want to. I usually take care of this before I start, but today I didn't for whatever reason. I just want to turn some stuff off, which could be eating up my bandwidth here. Let's see here. Can I turn it off? Man, I should have done that before, but hold on. There we go. Okay, that's going to be off. This guy's going to be off. This guy's off. And this guy's going to be off. Oop. I just have other devices that eat bandwidth when you're live streaming like this, so I just want to make sure I have all the chips in my favor, so to speak. All right. So guys, please give me a thumbs up if you will. It's always great to get started with some nice thumbs. And if you have questions, jump right in, guys. Vinny's World, nice to see you. Nella's here as well. Nice to see you, Nella. It's me, Don P. Mark's Gas Station. I'm just going down the list real quick here. Paul. Presley's here. Good morning, Presley the Nye. Dewey. My Logify says, nice looking Telecaster. I'm not even a Telecaster person, but look at this red. Yeah, this is an old one. This is it's a road worn Mexican version, but it's one of my favorites, man. It just plays so well. Everybody needs a Telecaster. For me, Telecasters are just the shit, you know. You gotta have a Telecaster or two. Let's see here. Farid is here as well. Time Surfing Alien. Jean-Pierre. Scott Anthony is here as well. Shane, good morning. Cool Toon says guitar addiction is not a problem. I agree. It only becomes a problem when you can't get more guitars. Otherwise, there's no problem. Zach Thong is here as well. All right. So where are the questions? I'm just scrolling down. I think I have a lot of scrolling to do. So Danielle had a question. Oh, and by the way, guys, please, if you have a question, put a little question mark ahead of your question so I know it's for me, okay? I forgot to mention that. So Danielle says, have used a Shure Beta 58 for vocals, but for years I just picked up a standard Shure 58. Friend tells me she likes my voice better with the standard non-beta version. The 57s and 58s are the go-tos in the industry. I mean, they're nothing fancy, but they're, you know, they're built like a rock. They're built like a tank. You can't go wrong with them. And honestly, there's not a big difference. I'm using a Shure right now, a Shure 58 right now. Right here, see? Standard with the filter on it, of course. There's not much of a difference between the 57s and 58s. The only difference is the actual mesh. That's about it. Hey, Patrick, what's up? Jack says, I have an Apple phone that comes with 57 Classics, he says. Good morning, Rico. How are things in Arizona? I'd love to come down at one point. Just enjoy the weather there. Time Surfing Alien says he loves his Epiphone. It was cheap and it rocks. Jack says he also has an Epiphone with 57 Classics in it. I have 57 Classics and a couple of guitars now. Those are kind of my go-to. Shane says my daughter's school tuition is at least a dozen custom shops. Don't worry, Shane. When she becomes a really smart cookie and gets a really well-paying job, she'll take care of you as you get older, and maybe she'll buy you a few really nice guitars to make up for it. It all comes back to you, buddy. It's all karma, right? Patrick says, Tony, I have two Blackstar combo stereo amps. I want to plug into them. I need a splitter pedal. So let me get this straight. So you want to plug in, you want to go into both amps at the same time? Is that it? Stereo? Yeah, a splitter pedal. Something like this. Let me show you. You could get something like this. This is an ABY box. Pretty inexpensive. You can see how it's made. So basically you have two switches here. You have AB. So you have, one is AB together. One is AB A or B. So if you do this one together, you're going into it stereo. It works really well, pretty inexpensive. You could probably get this off of eBay or Amazon. I forgot where I bought this. There's no real name to it, this one here. But it works really well. It's built really well. There's nothing to it really, but you have to, the only reason you have to plug it in is if you want to see the LEDs light up. Otherwise, you don't even have to plug it in. That will do the job. Music and Gears late again in the corner. Let's go. Punishment. No worries, dude. It's all good. Danielle says, I tend to think of an asset allocation when thinking of gear. No more than 5% in that category. I see. Danielle, do you happen to be an accountant by any chance? Something like that? Nella says the poll is on the community section of Tony's main YouTube page. Exactly. So for those of you that are new here, you might not know how to get to the poll, just go to YouTube, community tab. In there, you'll see the poll. You'll see the past polls too, I think. And I usually just, as an FYI, I usually try and put a weekly poll up, at least once a week. My Logify says the Tumnus sounds like a good idea for a review. Although there's a lot of reviews on the Tumnus now, because that pedal has been out for a while. But yeah, I can do that if you're interested in hearing that one. It's a very cool pedal indeed. Wampler makes great stuff. Cool Tune says, I got a Blackstar debut 50 for my Florida home. Decent cleans, overdrive lacking. Tried a lot of different drive pedals. So far settled on the Joyo Sweet Baby. It sounded best with it. You know, when you're looking for an amplifier, one thing I noticed, and actually I'll get into that in a little bit. I think we're going to be talking about amps quite a bit today, because I have a lot of interesting information. So the Blackstar amplifiers in general, the overdrive on some of those Blackstars tends to get a little bit muddy or fizzy sometimes, depending on how you use it. So you could maybe get better overdrive sounds just by dialing in a cleanish edge of breakup tone and then hitting it with a pedal. That's usually a good way of working around it if the drive is not to your liking. But one thing that I noticed over time, guys, is that when you're dealing with amplifiers, the interesting thing is the more expensive the amplifier, the more crappy pedals sound crappy. This is something that I noticed. And maybe you guys haven't noticed yet, or I don't know what you're playing through, but I noticed that. And it's interesting to me to know that, you know, like you can buy a relatively cheap pedal and it'll sound perfectly fine with certain gear. Certain amplifiers are more forgiving than others. But I find like the higher end you go in your amplifiers, the more boutique the amplifier is, the less you can hide behind that amplifier sound. It really gives you what you put in, and it's really transparent. So you really can hear any type of defect or any type of shortcoming in a pedal. So that is kind of the bad side of having, I guess, better quality amplifiers, if I can call them that. So Shane says, thought on the Fender Mustang Micro Plus. Yeah, that just came out. I guess, you know, it makes sense to come out with a new one because the old one did extremely well. I think a lot of people like to have those little gadgets because it makes practicing fun. I haven't tried it. I just saw the information pop up on my feed, so it must be like really new. Let me see the price on that. I don't know if it's a lot more expensive than the old one was. 129 bucks, I think. That's cheap. 129, of course, that's US. Canadian is about 200 bucks. I'm going to have to look into it to see like what people are saying about it. I didn't buy the last one because I had sort of the equivalent of what Fender was doing. There was other companies like NuX and stuff putting out equivalent products, you know. But from what I hear, it sounded pretty good. I like them, to be honest. I like these little devices because I find that anything that can make practicing easier is always better. You can play, you can practice your guitar unplugged, but there's no fun in that. It's always nicer just to put headphones on and stuff. Dan says, all my Fenders are pedal friendly. Yeah, Fenders tend to take pedals pretty well, I would say. I don't think I've ever had a big issue with a Fender amplifier not taking pedals well. The only thing is if you try to drive some type of Fender amplifiers a little bit too aggressively, they tend to kind of not work so well in that area, but they're not really made for that, right? D-Max says, I want to try one of those. He wants to run it with a mini jack out to an amp cable into a power amp of a Katana to see if it can be a low budget tone master. Interesting. I never thought of using it that way. That might work. I'll make a cool video. David says he likes his Spark Go. Bluetooth audio is great to have. It is great to have. I just hope it doesn't change anytime soon, because as you all know, whenever there's a device-based product out there, as soon as they change, connectors or the protocol, then, it just ends up being a paperweight. You know what I mean? There's so many things that I've purchased that have, different connectors. At one point it was, a Thunderbolt connector. Another point you can plug in a regular phone jack into it. Then that disappeared. Then it became a Thunderbolt connection. Then that disappeared. Now it's USB-C. So it's like it bothers me knowing that something might be obsolete. Spend money on good stuff and it works perfectly well, except you can't connect to it anymore. That bothers me so much. Searching for Tone says, I was leaning towards a modern line because of locking tuners and Gibson humbuckers, but Slash came with a case. So I'm missing the beginning part of that comment. I'll try and get to it here. Let's see here. There's a question. I have a Fender Evil Twin amp. It is Fender's most complex tube amp that is a sonic beast. Are you familiar with this amp and what are your thoughts? I am familiar with that amp. Yeah, the Evil Twin, which is different than a twin, by the way, is an interesting amplifier from Fender because I don't think it actually was all that popular when it came out. So I'm actually interested in hearing a little bit more about how you're using it, because a lot of people don't necessarily see these amps that often, but they're still around. Now if I'm not mistaken, the one that you have is obviously a transistor, right? I don't know how it became called the Evil Twin. If it was just because people didn't like the transistor aspect of it. And I'm just looking to see what they're going for now, because let's see here. I can't seem to find any prices on it. Actually, I'm mistaken, because there was actually a version that was not transistor. 1999, I believe it was made. And those amplifiers was a little bit more towards, I guess, high gain, if we can call it high gain. Fender high gain. I see one here is this still, I don't know if it's still being sold now. This one is a 1999 Fender Twin, which is the Evil Twin. It's they're asking $1,447 for it. That's US. It's got the standard 2-speaker configuration with Fender speakers in it. Fender came out with so many interesting amplifiers back in the day. Some of them took off, some of them didn't. I don't know why this one didn't for some reason. Um, I think it also came out around the same time as the Prosonic. And I think they also had the red knob version. So yeah, a couple of different versions of that amplifier. Not quite sure which one you have. Yeah, there was a red face version. That's right. Yeah. I think the big issue with that amplifier was that a lot of people wanted it to sound like the twin reverbs do. And I think that the clean channel didn't really do it. It didn't get to that kind of sound. Didn't have as much of those clean twin reverb tones, if I remember correctly, on that amplifier. That's probably why it didn't become as popular. But an interesting amp nonetheless. Now, is this an amp you bought recently, or is this something that you're looking at, or what's the backstory on that? Music and Gear says 800 to 1,000 for an Evil Twin mint to good shape. That's actually pretty low. You can get one for that price. J. Paul says, I have a Generation 3 2x12 Katana lined out to a Mark II Katana 1x12 and I'm loving it. Almost too many tones. Now I'm hooked on brown channel, no boost, and multiple EQ shuffle with the SDE 3000 on stereo expand. So it looks like J. Paul's got his sound dialed in. A lot of people love the Katanas for what they are. They're inexpensive. They're pretty good sounding amplifiers. You know, no hassle, no tubes. Built-in sounds. There's a lot of good positive things about the Katanas. And I think they're built relatively well because it's been quite a few years now since the Katana line is out. And I haven't really heard of any like major disasters. You know, after a while, you start hearing the shortcomings. The circuit board fails. The input jacks are no good. The switches break. I haven't heard that about the Katanas. Cool Tune says he tried the Spark amp at a Guitar Center a while back. Absolutely a gimmick amplifier. Couldn't stand it, he says. And it's weird because a lot of people do like it. So I guess it depends on your perspective, where you're coming from. What gear you're already using. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you have pretty good gear, it spoils other things. Nella says, where are all of the guitar deals? The market is supposed to be depressed, yet the advertised prices don't reflect that. Are dealers more receptive to offers these days? I don't know, man. I'm thinking the same thing. Even the used guitar market is a little bit crazy still, I find. I don't think the prices are realistic. I think everybody's trying to sell their gear for more than it's gonna sell for. And because of that, I think the used market's kind of at a standstill. I see a lot of stuff listed, but not a lot of stuff selling. I mean, you could post whatever your gear at whatever price you want to post it for. Doesn't mean it's gonna sell. DMAX says, I've been playing a Squier Affinity Telecaster through a Fly 3 all weekend. It's having a great time. Don't need to spend a lot to get cool sounds and have fun. You know what? I gotta say something about those Squiers, especially like the classic vibe line and stuff like that. Thank God for the Squiers. I think the Squiers is the best thing that could have ever happened to anybody that likes Fender guitars. Because of the Squier line and the fact that they're so affordable and they're so good, it's forcing Fender to actually make better products. Because if you try, a Squier, a classic vibe or something like that, either a Telecaster or a Stratocaster. They're really good. And, the only thing I usually say is that, sometimes the pickups on those guitars are a little bit less quality than you would get on a more expensive Fender guitar, which is to be expected. It's not that expensive. They have to cut corners. But I mean, those are easy upgrades to do. So if you spend, relatively little money, especially on the used market, on something like a Squier Classic Vibe Telecaster or Stratocaster, you're ahead of the game, man. You just put a little extra money on pickups and you're in business. So Earl says, I owned two twin reverb amps, and the Evil Twin has the cleanest sound of all. People tend not to like them due to the fact that they're so clean. Not Marshall-like distortion. It takes pedals well. I think that's the goal of the twin reverb amps in the day, was really to give you a lot of volume and a clean platform. So they were extremely loud. They didn't necessarily have a lot of dirt on them. You had to push them with a pedal, but they were extremely loud. And that's the reason why people don't really want them anymore today, is they're just too darn loud for home use anymore. J. Paul says, classic vibes changed my perspective on Squier. Great mod platform. Yeah, I got to agree with that, man. Can't go wrong with a decent Squier. Music and Gear says, Squier Troublemaker, $450 to $499. Great guitar. And that is the sweet spot for the pricing. $400, $450. It's doable. It's not a really big pill to swallow compared to, the 2K price mark that you're seeing most guitars come in today. Scott Anthony says, I've gotten away from using amps for the most part anymore. I spend the bulk of my musical time recording in my home studio. The sound that I get from these modern plugins is incredibly good. And I think they're going to get even better. I mean, the computers are getting so powerful today that the software that, is required to run these plugins can do incredibly well. Devices like Kempers and Fractals and stuff like that is basically a computer in a box. You need CPU power. And it's just in a portable box. And yeah, the plugins are amazing. The stuff that you can do today on your computer is just nuts. So there's really, it's getting to the point where there's less and less reason to actually own a real amplifier. But, and I gotta put in the but, there's nothing like the sound of a real amplifier. You know what I mean? With all of its quirks and all of its shortcomings and hassles, it's heavy, tubes give out, and, needs to be repaired and maintained and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing that sounds as good as a cranked real amplifier, It's like 4D compared to, emulations when you put them side by side. On a recording, it sounds fantastic, and the flexibility you're getting out of something that you can get out of your computer or a multi-effects unit is great for that, because you have so much at your disposal in terms of sounds. There's no doubt. It's a lot easier to go through a Fractal or a computer plug-in. You don't have to worry about cranking the amplifier in a live room and miking it and, interfaces and all this kind of stuff and feedback. It's all in a box, nice and clean, with a little neat bow tying everything up and keeping it all together. So for that, it's amazing. If you're doing recordings, I don't know why you would want to use anything else. But if you're playing side by side and you're playing a real amplifier compared to something coming out of a box like that, there's no comparison. Let's see here. So DMAX says the entry-level Squier Sonic Telecasters I've played lately have also been great values. Great entry point and for mods. There's a lot of them that are fantastic. Yeah, man. I haven't checked out the Sire guitars yet, Earl. I've reached out to them, and you know I've been trying to get a guitar for review, but so far just dead air. I guess they're selling pretty well. Maybe they don't need anybody to review their guitars for them on YouTube anymore. DMAX says the only real issue I had lately with a Squier was the new humbucker Telecaster pickup didn't sound great when I went high gain. Low gain, edge of breakup, no problem, and guitar played great. Like I said, that to me is probably the only issues with those Squier guitars, you know, but an easy fix. The pickup can be easily fixed, you know, and they don't even have to be fixed right away. They're, you know, you can live with them for a while. Eddie Jr. says, I really want to dive into plugins, but I'm really lacking the computer skills. Yeah, the issue with those things is that eventually they could cause just option paralysis. There's just too much stuff to play with at the same time, you know. That's the advantage of going with a guitar amplifier scenario, because you can introduce little effects here and there, a little at a time. You can get used to one at a time and really like squeeze all the juice out of that one effect, so you really understand how it works and how it works dynamically with that amplifier that you have before you introduce another one. When you have multi-effects or anything that's on a computer, you're just bombarded with so many options that it's easy to just end up with something bad in terms of sound. Hey Mark, Mark's working again. You gotta work, Mark, if you want the cool gear. Just don't work too hard, my friend. Jack says, Tony, I have a Fender Squier that I'm looking for a new neck for where I can find a good neck. Wormouth. They're expensive, but you can find pretty much any type of neck you want. The good thing about Wormouth is that you can actually select everything. The profile, the wood type, the fretboard material, the radius, compound radius, vintage radius, the fret style, thickness, width, everything. So, you know, if you really want to get something good, you could go there. It might be overkill for a Squier, but you know what I do? If I really want to get something that I like, I'll go for it. And then I'll just, if ever I sell that guitar, I keep the neck. Even if I would take the neck off of the Squier, I just keep the stock neck and then use the good custom made neck on it. And then if ever I want to sell the guitar, just put the stock neck back on. Keep the custom one. Put that on another guitar. J. Paul says, if you got the money, those Synergy docks and modules are ridiculously good. They can do it all. Hook up to a cab, front of house, computer, wherever. Real tube sound and a rack size unit. Multiple amp choices. Yeah, and it's just going to get even crazier, man. I'm telling you, this stuff's not going to go away. I know a lot of more and more artists out there that were using amps are switching to modelers now, even on stage. The last person that I was actually surprised to hear this. I don't know if you guys know the band Rival Sons. Anyway, the guitarist Scott Holiday, he's got a really quite unique tone. Very heavy on fuzz. Very fat, fuzzy tone. And he plays these Firebird style guitars and everything. He does a lot of slide work. Amazing tone. Really fat, thick tone. And recently I saw him say that he's gone to the dark side and he's not playing amps live anymore. And it's surprising, man. I guess it's one of those things. Eventually, I guess the flexibility, the freedom outweighs other things. I don't know, man. It's sad. It's sad to see that, but I'm not surprised. Russell wants to know what I think about the all parts replacement neck. They're a cheaper option than Warmoth. Yeah, they are cheaper. You can get them relatively inexpensively, maybe at about $200 or so. They make decent necks. You don't have as much option with the all parts necks. If you don't need anything crazy, those are a good choice as well. And you can find them used as well on eBay and places like that. Hey Charles, what's happening? All good? Danielle says a nearby store has a 20-watt Milkman amp in stock. I'm tempted to go look. 32-pound single-channel Fender-like amp, $3,749 USD. Man. Dude, what can I tell you, man? If that's your dream amplifier, what's $3,000, $4,000? You can make more money. Money can always be made, you know? Think about all that great time you could spend with that beautiful Milkman amp. You know, on the other hand, you could just get yourself a Fender amp. The Milkmen are really, beautiful amplifiers, handmade, boutique amplifiers, but they're expensive for $4,000. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily want to spend that kind of dough. But I get it, man. I absolutely get it. Tony, I have a valve amp I haven't turned on for a few years and left uncovered. Is it worth opening the back and cleaning it of dust? I mean, it all depends, dude. Do you live in a very dusty environment? If you do, then yeah. Maybe a little light dusting back there, maybe a little shop vac, just gently. Don't go into, I wouldn't necessarily go into the circuits, but just maybe, near where the tubes are. Take the tubes out first so you don't crack anything. Just give it a light dusting. Everything's good with me, Charles. Nice to see you here, man. Shane says, money can always be made, ? Tony, my wife would hate you. Oh, dude. Just tell her life's too short. At the end of the day, are you going to be thinking about when you're on your deathbed, and this is a little bit of a morbid thought, but when you're on your deathbed, are you going to be thinking, man, I should have worked harder, or, I should have spent more time working or playing my guitars? I think that's an easy question to answer. Nala says, I love to get a Friedman Little Sister head, but I need to stumble upon a bag of cash first. But the Little Sisters are not as expensive. I'm not going to say, I was about to say not that expensive. Nah, I wouldn't say that. Not as expensive. But you can probably get them used for a lot cheaper, man. J. Paul says power wash it. Yeah, that's a good option. Yeah, just be careful, man. You don't want to electrocute yourself. So the reason why I could agree with the comment on the Milkman amplifier was because I also had the opportunity to finally try the Tone King Royalist Mark III that I've been talking about. You guys have probably heard me mention this amplifier once or twice before. So I had major gas for this amplifier, and I was waiting for an opportunity to try it. About 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, there was some in stock at a local shop here, and I was planning to go try it out. Unfortunately, it got sold, so there wasn't a lot of inventory. And you know, those amplifiers are they're unique because they're made one at a time. They don't really make that many. So if something's out of stock, sometimes you got to wait a long time. Like 2Rocks, for example, 2Rock amplifiers. If you see one and you don't grab it and it sells, that retailer might not get another one for a year. You know, so certain things need to be snagged up right away. So I got the opportunity to go and try this Tone King Imperial, Royalist, not the Imperial, sorry, mixing them up now, yesterday. An amazing amplifier, like so good, but expensive. You're looking at 4Gs for that particular amp. So I tried the combo. The combo was amazing. Just sounded so responsive. It sounded so warm, and it was a little bit not what I was expecting, because I know that amplifier is supposed to be like 2 or 3 Marshall flavors in one amplifier, which it is. Lower gain, mid gain, and higher gain, but it doesn't have a master volume at all. So if you're playing through that amplifier, you got to crank it to get that fat, lively sound out of it. And thankfully, it's got really great attenuators built in, the Iron Man attenuators, not one, but 2 of them. So it's really a balancing act between, you know, volume and attenuation to get into the sweet spot, but you can definitely do it. So great. So I actually recorded some video for you guys. I'll be posting that maybe tomorrow. Just run and gun. I went there with, just my phone, really. Shot everything on my phone. Nothing Hollywood about it. Just played through the amplifier and was amazing. And the reason why I shot the video, I want you guys to hear it. I want you guys to give me some feedback on that. Let me know if I should go for it. You know, it's definitely not like any of the other amplifiers I have already. Even though I have the Marshall and I have the Friedman, Dirty Shirley, and the Brunetti Pleximan, they're all great amplifiers. That one's different. I wouldn't necessarily say it does anything the same way as these amplifiers that I have here. So the question would be whether or not, you know, I want to spend $4,000 on another amplifier. You know, the FM9, you know, I could probably get a patch that's going to get in the ballpark. But again, it doesn't sound like the real thing. It just doesn't. So I'd be fooling myself and thinking that it would. The question I have is like, you know, if you guys had a $4,000 amplifier, $3,000 amplifier, would you take that amplifier to a rehearsal? Would you take it out of the house? So this is the thing I'm debating. You know, you can spend a lot of money to get a really, really good sound. But then are you going to be willing to take that amplifier out? I'd like to hear what you guys tell me on this. You know, I've done it. I've taken stuff out of the house that is pretty expensive. But, you know, when you're walking down the street late at night and you're carrying gear that could be, you know, easily the price of a, I would say, you know, an older car maybe, it makes you think twice. But there's not that much. I find today there's not that much available anymore. If you want a really decent sounding amplifier that can do a lot, you got to spend at least $2,000. That's the thing. You can get a nice Fender Deluxe, for example, but even the Deluxes are getting expensive. What could somebody tell me what a Fender Deluxe reverb, but just a standard Fender Deluxe reverb, not the transistor stuff, not that stuff. The run-of-the-mill Fender Deluxe reverb, How much does that go for in your neck of the woods used? I just want to compare prices. I've seen some listed here, and I can't find one under $1,500 used. That seems high to me. Maybe I'm getting out of whack. I'm not in tune maybe with the going prices. Not really sure. But I want to get your feedback on that. Let me know what you guys think. Nella says, how do you like that Agnator amp? Which model is it? Everybody mixes up. That's not an amp. That's just a cabinet. You see the Agnator there and you think it's the a combo, but it's not. Yeah, I used to have an Agnator amp. I used to have the Rebel, which was a decent amplifier. I'm going to say the Agnator Rebel to me is almost like in the realm of PV. Like the PV Classic lines. I used to also have a PV Classic amp back in the day. It's around the same thing. It's not a bad amplifier, but I think they're out of business now. I don't think Agnator's making any more, unfortunately, because they were making some decent stuff. But I do have the cabinet. The cabinet is very solidly built. It's got Baltic birch, marine grade plywood cabinet. So I snagged it. And I use that for a 1x12 now. Grandpa Guitarist says, I have a monoprice amp that I paid $250 for, and it does everything I need. Grandpa has the right approach. You know, just buy what you need. You know, you can definitely go looking for the best, but the best is quite expensive. I gotta say, I gotta think about the Tone King Royalist. I really have to think about it. Because I think that I can get a lot of those tones with the gear that I have. Won't be the same. You know, will not be the same. But again, $4,000 is $4,000. Cool Tune says, Tony, gotta get a cab for my Marshall SV20 when I get home. Advice? Or what would you match up with the amp? 1x12, 2x12, and what speaker? For me, dude, I think, honestly, I would at least go with a 2x12. At the very least. If you can do a 4x12, even better. You can get away with a 1x12, no doubt. But I just feel it sounds bigger with a 2x12. And I would get Celestion's, the 12G 65s. Those are my favorite speakers. That's what I have in my Marshall cabinet behind me, in my 4x12 there, in that one. 65. Those speakers are really good. Really nice match for the Marshall. You can also get the Heritage speakers as well. Celestion Heritage. Those are good too. But for me, the 65s are the ones I like so much. The Rolla versions. The ones that are made in England. Sometimes you can find them. They're not inexpensive, but they sound good. To me, they sound way better than the greenbacks and all that, which I have in these cabinets. Some of them, I got a 2x12 cab there and two 1x12s, and they all have different speakers because I like to try different things. So far, nothing comes close to those, the ones that are in that Marshall cabinet. They're amazing. Guys, if I can get some thumbs up, I would appreciate it. We have 64 eyeballs, or more than 64. 64 times 2, I hope. Eyeballs on me, and only 35 thumbs up. So either I'm offending you guys, or I don't know, not saying what you want to hear or something, but I would really appreciate if we can get at least 60 thumbs up. That would be so cool, and I would appreciate it. Nella says there's a 74 Deluxe Reverb that someone is asking $2,200 USD. Seems kind of crazy. Yeah, but it's a 74. People go nuts when things get a little old. The thing is, you have to also remember, guys, if you're buying a 74, an amplifier that was made in 1974, that amplifier has got to get overhauled. You got to go in there, and there's a lot of stock components that have probably shifted. And when I say shifted, I mean the values are no longer where they should be. People don't realize, but components, after a while, after many years, if they're rated for, you know, whatever it is, let's say, I don't know, I'm not an electronics wizard, but let's say there's a capacitor that's rated at 200 ohms or something like that. After many, many years, that's not working the same way anymore. It's actually shifted. So if you measure it, instead of reading 200, it'll be like 100, 120 or something like that. And this happens all around the circuit. So the amplifier does not sound good anymore. It's out of spec. So you got to bring it to somebody that knows what they're doing. You got to bring it to somebody that can actually go in there and check and do the work required to bring it back to up to spec. That's costly. Yeah, we should do the poll, Paul. Yeah, man. I'll do it. Hey, Johnny Bean is here. Johnny, what's up, dude? Like your channel, man. Everybody check out Johnny Bean's channel if you have an opportunity. It's very entertaining. I'm a big fan. Let's see here. Anybody else? NFM has a question. Hi, Tony. My Telecaster thin line is my number one. I split time between the Idaho and Virginia. I split time between Idaho and Virginia. The thin line currently lives in Virginia and does not travel. Should I buy another? Or a 335? Don't have one now. Dude, you got to get a 335. Telecasters are fantastic. I love Telecasters. Don't get me wrong, but you got the Telecaster covered with the thin line. Get a 335. I love 335s, dude. I'm a big fan. So if you don't already have one, I would say get a 335. Yeah, getting a good guitar tech or a good amp tech is hard. You're spot on about the older amps needing to be overhauled. A friend of mine has a whole slew of vintage Marshall Plexis, and they're nothing but a big problem all the time. Yeah, they go out of whack. This is what I said earlier about, amplifiers are great, but they're, they need to take care of them, especially old gear. That's why a lot of people don't buy old gear anymore. They'll buy like boutique versions. Instead of buying an old Vox amplifier, they'll go with something new. It could be not even made by Vox, but they'll go with a builder that will make the equivalent as it is today. And you'll have less issues. Steve says, could any of the value changes make the amp sound better with time? I mean, it could happen. It would totally be fluke, but yeah, it could happen. Doesn't always happen. I've even seen people using older gear where they don't even have a ground in the plug because they didn't have grounds back then. So you're playing with a really powerful amplifier into the wall with no little ground plug, then you get all kinds of noise issues and you risk electrocuting yourself if you're playing with these things on stage. So, old gear is cool. Don't get me wrong. It's got mojo, but it's not always practical. My Logify says, Tony, about your poll, which one of those pedals would I can't even speak, would yourself want to win? I didn't say anything about winning it. I said about reviewing those pedals. So I don't know if I misspoke on my poll question, but the thing on the poll question was, which pedal would you like me to review for you guys? Just to be clear. Jack Collins says, I'm loving my Epiphone Dot. Yeah, I used to have one too. Great guitar. For the money, it's great, man. Danielle says, I find I rarely take my Benedetto 16B out of the house. I find my Eastman AR50 503 CE with a Seymour Duncan Benedetto A6 pickup installed comes very close. I understand not wanting to take expensive gear out of the house. This is what I was saying earlier. Like if you had a $4,000 amp or a head, would you want to take that to a gig, to a rehearsal? Probably not. You know, you would have to think twice. You know, if it was me, I'd grab a katana. You know, couldn't care less if anything happens to it. At the end of the day, you know. So here it is. So this is what I realized yesterday when I was playing with my friend Charles. My vibrato is a little nervous. He's got such a sweet vibrato when he plays. I usually have a nervous vibrato. I do this. Like that. Which sounds nervous. So I got to work on that. I got to get it smoother. How many of you out there work on your vibrato? I think it makes a huge difference when you got that down pat. Also, the bends. Bending and overshooting your bends. That's key. I got to work on that. My Logify says, I've heard many times many people picking up their Les Paul Standard less because of weight. 1958 is lightweight, but normal ones are heavy. Normal ones are heavy. It depends on the guitar, man. They're not all the same. I know the Black Beauties back in the day were very heavy. I know for a fact, a good friend of mine has one. He lent it to me. I did a review on that one. It's bowed anchor heavy. But at the end of the day, man, it's a great guitar, even though it's heavy. Johnny Bean says the vibrato is the key to a signature sound. You're absolutely right, Johnny. And I got to work on mine. It's the little nuances that make all the difference when you're playing. Things that you don't really pay attention to all that much. But when somebody bends out of tune, like I often bend out of tune because I get excited. You know, I'm playing and when you're playing fast, and I always do like this is definitely out of tune. When I do this. You know, the first bend downwards, it should be way, way less than that. So it's almost like take your bends when you're playing fast and give it half the power. That's the hard part of playing when you get excited and you get the adrenaline going. You just overbend everything. And that's hard to control. Vinny's World said, I forget who it was, a big name rock star, but he had a very good explanation on varying the vibrato depending on the type of phrase. I'd love to find that information because any tips I can get is always great. It's always fun. Should we do the poll question, guys? We're at about an hour. I'm going to have to jet out of here soon. I do the same, Paul. I bend and use the vibrato together, which is double the trouble. It's just not, it's even worse because then you're messing up two things at once. But okay, let's do the poll question, guys. Let's see here. And hopefully you guys have taken the time to vote on my other poll question as well. So let's see. Community. Here we go. All right. So, okay. We had 100 votes, not bad, on the question I had, which is, does your current guitar collection also include a guitar that you hate? If so, why do you still have it? Good question, eh? I think it's interesting because 60% of you says no. I've said no, I love all my guitars equally. And 40% of you said yes, I have one that I can't seem to get along with. And if you guys have more than one guitar, that's what usually happens. You have a totem pole. You have the one that you love, the one that you know, if you had to get rid of, you would seriously consider whether or not you'd want to get rid of. And then you have the one that you're like, yeah, that's the one I would like throw out of the house immediately. So why do we still hang on to those guitars? It's interesting, isn't it? I think I could probably pick one of the guitars that I wouldn't mind getting rid of immediately, right now. The only reason I still hang on to it is because I'm too lazy to put it online for sale, to sell it. But I'm curious about your comments. So somebody says, my Fender Squier was my favorite before I made my first Les Paul style kit. Now I have two favorites. I have 8 guitars and all of them are pretty nice, being that they're not brand names, but I would put them up against any brand name out there because I set up all my guitars myself. So this is something that's a little bit out of the norm, where somebody's building his own guitars, but I could totally relate to that. Like if you're building your own guitars, you put your heart and soul into that guitar, and you know every square millimeter of that guitar. You know exactly what you've tweaked and what made the biggest difference. It's hard to get rid of those guitars. Somebody else says, extended bonding period rather than hate. I'm not sold on the jumbo frets, and the neck feels a bit too thin, but it really shines in other areas. It's a process, he says. Gene, our very own Gene here, says it's hate is a pretty strong word, but I don't have 2 guitars that, due to form, SG neck length, and bulkiness of my dreadnought, make playing for long periods a bit uncomfortable. And our very own Paul here says, I have one guitar that has frets so low that they're barely more than silver painted lines to mark off the pitch. I can cope with it by playing with very light touch. Out of 10 guitars where I play with a consistent touch, it's even difficult to remember to pull back when I play. It does sound very good where I use it, so it's hard to give it up. And Shane, our very own Shane here, says, this is a hard question to answer. After all, who can really hate a guitar? I might hate a company, but not a guitar. Frustration or disappointment might be more appropriate than hate. Okay, maybe hate was a strong word. I agree. Just, I guess, you're just not feeling it as much. Johnny says, I build my own guitars and I've had to get rid of most of them over the years. Guitars to me are tools for different jobs, recording and live gigs. Yeah, I understand that. But if you build a couple of your own guitars, I think you know which ones are good, which ones are duds. Like, it doesn't take long. I build guitars too. I love building my own. I have a few behind me that I've built as well. I could tell you exactly which ones are the keepers and which ones didn't turn out so great. I put the same amount of attention into them, but it's just I would say, the sum of all the parts. The setup, the different components you put in there, the pickups, the wiring, everything. They don't turn out the same way. The woods, everything makes a difference. All right, guys, I'm going to have to jet. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut it short today, but I've been having a lot of fun with you guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Vinny, I will take a look at the Steve Vai guitar method vibrato. Steve's got an interesting way. I think I've seen it before. Steve does this thing where he makes little circles. I don't know how he does it. He does this thing where he holds the other string so you don't hear them. And he does the vibrato in a circular motion. I've looked at it. I couldn't do it. That's a Steve Vai thing. But anyway, I won't, I'll keep at it. Hopefully everybody will get an opportunity to improve these little dynamics that make your playing so unique. But I had a great time with you guys today. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. Please give me a thumbs out on the way out. If you haven't voted on the second poll where I'm asking which pedals you want me to review, please do that. I'll check out the results on that, and I'll oblige. We'll be back next Sunday, guys. Same time, same place, in the morning, 10:30 a.m. It's a little early for some of you, but I look forward to it. It's almost like, you know, my group session therapy time with you guys. So I look forward to it. I hope you guys do too. There'll be some interesting videos popping up this week, so check out the channel. And most importantly, guys, stay tuned, keep on rocking, and enjoy your gear. That's the most important thing, man. Life's too short for anything else. I'll see you all soon, all right? Have a good week, everybody.